Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another dispatch. So I'm going to continue to read from the book Power and Presence, a handbook for painting in our time, but I'm going to skip a few chapters and move to chapter 5, Interpretations of Cezanne, Monet, and Morisot. So we'll see how the timing goes, but I'm going to try to get through about 5 pages on Cezanne and do a little screen share. There's a painting that I will be talking about. So, given that painting can be seen as an expression of consciousness, conditioning the deeper nature of formal elements, this is referring to previous chapter, how might we understand the various projects of great artists? Can we interpret the work of master painters in terms of being? I would like to attempt a few examples. Let us start with Paul Cezanne. Cezanne's work is a watershed moment in the history of Western art, demarcating the forthcoming exploration of subjectivity found in the 20th century. Western painting has always been impacted both by the objective visual experience of the world and the subjective dimension of how this world is felt and experienced. With Cezanne, this dialectic becomes overt. He is no longer telling the story inherited from the time of the Renaissance, that his painting is a window onto an objective world. Rather, his painting works to give form to the ongoing flux of his perceptions of the world, that is, his experience of this ostensibly objective reality. In his exploration of this flux, Cezanne is investigating his visual perceptions rigorously and empirically, relinquishing prior assumptions and knowledge. Additionally, his marking occurs in relation to his felt sense of something unchanging, underlying all experience. Joachim Gasquet, a young friend and poet, I'm not sure how to say that, Gasquet, 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 a young friend and poet, remembers Cezanne explaining, everything vanishes, falls apart, doesn't it? Nature is always the same, but nothing in her that appears to us lasts. Our art must render the thrill of her permanence, along with her elements, the appearance of all her changes. It must give us a taste of her eternity. Cezanne refers to that which has permanence and always the same as nature's eternity. His painting grapples not only with that which falls apart, but that which is invisible and unchanging. This abiding dimension of reality is not accessed through his visual perception. It is found and felt inwardly. How does Cezanne attempt to give form to eternity in his painting? We will turn to this question after looking at how Cezanne handles nature's flux and the appearance of all her changes. One example of how Cezanne engages with the changes of his perception is seen in the way he allows the tone of a form to continuously shift, regardless of its irrationality. Let us look at the painting Still Life with Blue Vase, 1887. Okay, so here I'm going to do a little screen share here. Come here, buddy. Here we go. Okay, let's close this. Thank you. Okay, so here, right, we've got a vase of flowers, we've got the wall behind it, we've got some fruit on a table. Looking at the wall behind the vase, the tone is inconsistent, right? Okay. We see blotches of light blue-gray, light green-gray, and mauve. Which is it? Why did he not settle on one tone for the wall? Certainly the wall wasn't actually a collection of various blotchy tones. The color in the painting keeps changing because he wasn't painting the tone of the wall. He was painting his perception of the tone of the wall. And his perception kept changing. Cezanne followed these changes in his marking. We see this dynamic again in the edges of forms. Look at the pieces of fruit on the right side of the table. We see multiple lines describing their forms as if attempting to ascertain the actual shape of the orange. But why does he not decide and conclude what the shape finally is and then erase or paint over the incorrect outlines? Because he is not painting the fruit. He is painting his perception of the fruit. By using both eyes, he experiences a subtle flutter of the edge. Each eye holds a slightly different position of the edges of the fruit. He isn't painting what he knows to be a solid form. He is attempting to paint his seeing of the form. This exploration of edge quality gets deeply explored in the way Cezanne paints the form of the blue vase itself. Cezanne's delineation of the left side of the vase is clear. So we see this is all very, very clear here. And even though the edge goes through various changes as our eye moves along it, a clearly defined edge at the top shoulder and a softer edge as we slide down to the part of the vase in front of the plate. So it's very clear, then it softens. The edge line strengthening as we continue going down further, right? This gets clearer. But the integrity of the form is intact. It reads on the left side as a solid vase. On the right side, something altogether different occurs. The line edge of the right shoulder is even more strongly delineated than the left side, right? This is all very clear. Pulling strongly away from the background, right? Background wall beside it, as our eye slides down the right edge of the vase. Lowering towards the plate, the edge of the vase splits apart. There appears to be two separate possible edges, one going down and one coming up. They do not actually meet, but rather dwindle next to each other in a mix of cool gray. It is as if the right side of the vase quietly dissolves into the shadowed plate, then dissipates into space. This happens again in the bottom edge of the half plate left of the vase, right? This area right here. The outer edge, as it curves down and towards us, dissolves into the light warm gray, form dissolving into space. The plate itself becomes impossibly distorted, right? This is one plate, right? And disjointed. This is due to Cezanne incorporating at least two different perspectives as he paints by turning his head slightly this way and that. The image of the plate, one apparent object, provides us with two different moments of experience. The rim of the opening of the vase is firm on the left side and reliably solid. The flowers in the center right of the bouquet are massed together with a gathered solidity. Dark, cool shadows surround the bottom. Dark, cool shadows surround the bottom white petals, bracing and fortifying their form. As we glance to the top of the bouquet, the stems, leaves, and flowers become mere sketches, marks in paint, hardly formed. Throughout the painting, there is a range of Cezanne's visual, tactile sensibility, in which the sight of a form initiates a remembered tactile sense of the form. How do things feel? The visual and tactile sensations arrive together into the painted mark, attempting to describe both aspects. The results of Cezanne's inquiry range from solid, sturdy form to a dissolving evanescence. Cezanne is not presenting a known cataloged world of solid forms, but rather the flux of solid form and space that one encounters in one's actual moment by moment visual experience. This is the first aspect of Cezanne's engagement, a radical, empirical investigation of his perceptions in paint. The second aspect of his experience he is trying to express is the unchanging and unseen eternity, the experience of being itself that underlies all ongoing perceptual changes. This aspect of unchanging being is the determining power in Cezanne's mode of composition. That is, how he organizes all of the formal elements, the shapes, marks, and rhythms, and relates them to the four sides of the rectangle. Although Cezanne scrupulously plans his still life setups, the positions of the plates and fruits and folds, he does not plan out his compositions the way, for example, Hopper or Raphael would. Cezanne knows what his motif entails, but he does not know how the motif will find its expression on the canvas or how the visual circuit of the viewer will play out in this particular rectangle with this particular format. As a viewer looking at a Cezanne painting, my eye meanders as I get to know the painting. This meandering is a visual circuit, right? I'm kind of looking around and my eye moves around as I look at all the pieces, right? It's a visual circuit. Taking still life with a blue vase as an example, I may begin from the center red flowers as it catches my eye. Up to the right, following the arching leaves. Then upward with the lift of the spare single stem touching the blonde frame. Over to here. Then perhaps my eye drops to the brown square and accompanying line next to the very right edge of the canvas. This warm brown square might lead my eye in color association over and across to the other side of the oddly cropped brown bottle holding the very left of the rectangle. Just go from brown to brown. My eye just kind of pops over there. And this is just one, there's all kinds of ways my eye might move. I'm just describing one. This warm brown might lead my eye, yes, very left edge of the rectangle. My eye then might then swoop down across the bottom edges of the fruit, of objects of the fruit. Down here, I'm looking and I start going down here. A red, orange, peach over to a couple of oranges to the right, then up to the ink bottle, oddly hovering above the wooden table, and then up to those arched leaves now leading my eye to the left as I start becoming familiar with the upper part of the bouquet. What I just described is an example of a visual circuit. how the eye meanders over the surface of the painting. Generally speaking, if the composition of a painting is strong, my eye, the eye, will meander over the painted surface without impediment and without any inclination to stop and leave the rectangle. When compositionally whole, a visual circuit will continue to be interesting, will continue to lead the eye, will continue to facilitate engagement. I just want to keep on looking. The painting remains visually compelling. Over time, I find myself moving over different regions of the rectangle, discovering marks and colors and shapes, more and more visual incidents. No part of the rectangle remains outside of this meandering. No area of the rectangle is ignored. And no part of the painting locks me in and disallows further traveling. This familiarizing coheres into an experience of unity. This is one thing I am looking at. And in some inexplicable way, this one thing is looking back at me. The painting looks back at me like a face, face to face. Cezanne's painting practices discovers Cezanne's painting practice discovers and constructs this visual circuit in relation to the four sides of the rectangle as he paints and proceeds. Each time he responds to something noted in his perception, this notation gets placed somewhere on the canvas and builds a discovered compositional structure. Discovered as he proceeds, not determined beforehand. His placement of a note of paint is motivated not only by where this new piece of perceived information is located in nature. A note of red flower is placed next to the note of blue vase, but more profoundly determined by the need to balance the accruing visual forces developing on the canvas. The brown square on the right side of the rectangle is balanced by the brown of the split bottle over on the left side of the rectangle. This compositional play ends up creating a dynamic equilibrium. There is both visual movement and visual balance, a dynamic equilibrium. Cezanne's compositional structure is not planned, it is found. The composition creates a kind of wholeness in movement, or movement in wholeness. Cezanne's marks and notations, grounded in his empirical discoveries, weaves the flux of his perception into a felt, found visual wholeness. This formal compositional wholeness brings our attention into a felt recognition of wholeness. We feel this with our entire system, our body, mind, and heart. Our mind realigns with being, the wholeness that undergirds all experience, which is invisible and unchanging. Cezanne tethers and builds access to the wholeness of being through and with his radically empirical, in the moment attention to the flux of his visual perceptions. Nature is always the same, but nothing in her that appears to us lasts. Our art must render the thrill of her permanence. These are not, in truth, two things, change and permanence. This is one painting and one reality. It is only our minds that can, and do, separate this indivisibility into separate parts. The forms and appearances of our world come out of, are an expression of, and made out of non-form, essential reality. We cannot grasp this with our minds. but we can sense it, taste it with our being. So it is with our being, we are able to make whole paintings. This is the gift and challenge of painting. This is painting as an aesthetic practice of self-realization. All right, let's stop the screen share. Back to just me here. I mean, it goes on, but that's enough. Yeah, that's enough. So, excuse me. All right. Hope that wasn't too long. Hope you're all well. And okay. I'm gonna go paint. I hope you're all making stuff. Maybe just making some good soup. Anyway, take good care, and I will hear from you, hopefully. Let me know. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.